Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something I've touched on before in a few previous videos on this channel, but it's definitely one of my biggest fandoms. In fact, I'd probably go so far as to say it's number 3 for me, behind Pokemon and The Legend of Zelda. And one of the things that's kept me hooked on Yu-Gi-Oh! All these years, aside from the card game itself, is the characters in the anime. From the protagonists to the villains to even some of the rival characters. It's cool to see some of these characters just existing in this world where everyone takes a children's card game so damn seriously. But I promise you, there is no one on Earth who takes children's card games more seriously than the subject of today's video. Introducing, for your consideration, Seto Kaiba. Seto Kaiba is one of the main characters in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters series, presented as the primary rival to the protagonist, Yugi Muto. Everyone in the series has their own signature monster, and when you think of Seto Kaiba, the monster that should instantly come to mind is the mighty Blue Eyes White Dragon. Seto is so connected to Blue Eyes that he constantly uses it as a design basis for many of his personal effects. Theme parks, duel arenas, statues, and even a jet. Yeah, the man has a Blue Eyes White Dragon jet! You will never be in a vehicle this cool. Now, one might wonder why he's so fixated on this one particular monster, aside from the obvious reason that it's powerful and it looks awesome. And some people might tell you that it's because of some ridiculous notion that it's the reincarnation of some girl that Kaiba's ancient Egyptian counterpart was in love with, and who gave her life to protect him, and pledged to serve him as the Blue Eyes White Dragon, but come on, we all know that Seto Kaiba doesn't believe in any of that hocus-pocus nonsense. You know, despite how often he has visions of the past, experiences shadow games, and once literally saw Maximilian Pegasus use the Millennium Eye to remove Kaiba's brother's soul from his body right in front of his face. Seriously, you almost have to admire just how stubborn Kaiba is about not believing any of the magic and mysticism that he is constantly experiencing. Yu-Gi-Oh's creator, Kazuki Takahashi, first conceptualized the character of Seto Kaiba when one of his friends met a competitive card game player. Takahashi's friend asked the player to teach him how to play a card game, but the player merely scoffed and told the friend, come back when you've collected 10,000 cards. Takahashi thought that such a person would make an interesting character, and I feel like history has ultimately proven that notion correct. Hell, I'm dedicating an entire YouTube video to the guy. You must be doing something right. Orphaned as a small child due to his parents' mysterious death, Seto and his younger brother Mokuba wound up at an orphanage, where he met then CEO of KaibaCorp, Gozaburo Kaiba, who was there to perform a publicity stunt. Seto saw an opportunity and challenged Gozaburo to a game of chess, where, if Seto were to win, Gozaburo would have to adopt him and Mokuba. Knowing he'd face media backlash if he refused the challenge of a small child, Gozaburo accepted, and ended up losing the game, becoming Seto and Mokuba's reluctant adoptive father in the process. And what's even worse for Gozaburo is that Seto eventually managed to turn all of his strict business-oriented education against him, coming up with a plan to gain enough shares of KaibaCorp to rip the company right out of his hands, an event that caused Gozaburo such embarrassment and shame that he vanished without a trace. Well, I mean, technically, you know, he uploaded his mind to a virtual world that also housed the mind of his biological son Noah, but, you know, the less said about the virtual reality arc, the better.
Alright, that little detour was a complete waste of my time and effort. So let's move on and pretend that nonsense never happened.
Aside from his little brother, Mokuba, Seto Kaiba shows very little outward kindness or compassion towards others at all, and despite, or maybe even because of, how stubborn, brash, cold, and standoffish he acts, especially towards Yugi and his group of friends, he's maintained a serious level of popularity amongst the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanbase. It certainly doesn't hurt that he maintains a cool, badass demeanor, wields a deck full of awesome and iconic cards, and thanks in part to the excellent voice work of Eric Stewart, the guy is just endlessly quotable.
We've arrived at the heart of evil.
Do you always have to be so dramatic? And anyone who's late for registration will be disqualified. Mokuba, make sure Wheeler's late.
For too long, we've been forced to live in just this reality. It's tedious, poorly designed, and pathetically constructed. If the one responsible was in my employ, I'd have him fired.
Mokuba, what do I always tell you? If at first you don't succeed, blast him with your blue eyes again!
You can't defeat me because I possess the person you care about more than anyone else in the world.
Unless you've somehow kidnapped me without my knowledge, I think that's impossible.
Okay, that last one was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged quote, but come on, Little Karibo does good work. Seto Kaiba debuted in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime that we all know and love in the first episode, The Heart of the Cards. Though, if you want to be technical, he also was in the original short-lived Toei Animation anime, also sometimes referred to as Season 0, where he inexplicably has green hair. And while that obviously didn't carry over into his more well-known anime design, Seto Kaiba certainly stayed green with envy for Yugi. In the first episode of the Duel Monsters anime, Kaiba defeats Yugi's grandpa in a duel and destroys the latter's prized Blue Eyes White Dragon, ensuring that it couldn't be used against him. A smart move, considering that Kaiba owned the only other 3 in the world. However, even the combined power of 3 Blue Eyes wasn't enough to stand up to Yugi himself and the unstoppable power of Exodia the Forbidden One, causing Kaiba to lose. A moment that would be the catalyst for an obsession to defeat Yugi Muto. Oh, you think Prince Zuko spending 3 years scouring the planet for the Avatar to regain his honor is a display of determination? You think Hulk Hogan convincing WCW to sign the Ultimate Warrior just so he could get his win back from WrestleMania 6 was a massive ego flex? Please, these two could only aspire to the level of obsession that is Seto Kaiba. Listen, we're talking about a guy who essentially threatened suicide to try and get Yugi to throw their first rematch. We're talking about a guy who constantly created computer simulations of Yugi and his deck in order to create every possible counter to his strategies. We're talking about a guy who used Aigami's quantum cube for the sake of interdimensional travel just so he could try to get his win back from the Pharaoh in the afterlife. We're talking about a guy that held a contest for people to create custom Duel Monsters cards, with the prize being that said cards would be shot into space so that extraterrestrial life forms could learn how to play Duel Monsters. Okay, so maybe that last one has nothing to do with Yugi, but come on, that's so completely absurd, I just had to mention it. The guy wants to beat space aliens at card games. I'm entirely convinced that he only came up with that plan as an excuse to use Duel Monsters to conquer other planets, and then build Blue Eyes White Dragon themed colonies on them. Boy howdy, I sure can't wait to go to Kaiba Land Jupiter. Honestly though, I can't really blame him for his obsession with defeating Yugi and reclaiming his #1 spot. I mean, spending all of those years upstaged by a child who was a walking Deus Ex Machina in his necklace has gotta do a number on a guy's ego. Especially considering that he should have already beaten him in the Pyramid of Light movie. No, seriously, go back and watch it. Kaiba debuts the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon in that movie, and he even states that, just like the actual card, Blue Eyes Shining Dragon gains 300 attack for every dragon in the graveyard, but for some reason, the writers only counted Rare Metal Dragon, the 3 Blue Eyes Whites, and the Blue Eyes Ultimate, but they completely forgot about his Paladin of White Dragon, a monster who was also sent to the graveyard in that duel, which is also a dragon-type monster. That means the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon's attack points should have been at 4,800, not 45, and its first attack should have taken the last 200 of Yami Yugi's life points. Seriously, Kaiba was robbed. He wins, dude. He wins on that first attack, Anubis kills the Pharaoh and takes over the world. Game over, man. Game over!
Daniel, it's been like 17 years. You gotta let it go, man.
No, Steve, I'm not gonna stop complaining about this.
You just gotta let it go.
It's bullshit. So, what do you think of Seto Kaiba? Do you have a favorite Kaiba quote? Let me know in the comments below. Give this video a like if you liked it, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and ring the bell to get notified whenever I upload. See you in the next video, friendos.